Hello and welcome. I'm very pleased to kick off our third episode in our GLP-1 series, where we discussed a range of topics and issues around GLP-1s with personal trainer Becky Lever. In this session, we're going to carry on the conversation about food noise. In our last session, we met with Sally, who kindly shared her own journey on being on a GLP-1, and she mentioned quite often the concerns she had around food noise. So let me welcome Becky once again to discuss food noise.
Hello, thank you, Katrina. That's really kind of you. Good to meet everybody. So, food noise, yeah, it's really interesting. Sally's
Yeah.
one of my clients, obviously, so we've heard about her journey, as you suggested. Another thing that I've spoken with a number of my clients about is, how it impacts being on GLP-1s and what food noise actually means. So, a lot of the GLP-1 community that I've worked with say that the side effects of it can be challenging at times, things like the nausea and tiredness and, various things that we need to do. The food noise has been primarily quite important for some people in terms of the positive impact of taking away that constant engagement with what's for dinner this evening, what am I going to have for lunch, what
And
I'm hungry.
can I interrupt you there?
Mm,
That what food noise? Because
yes.
I mean, people talk about it and we go, yeah, yeah, yeah. But you think, well, actually, what is food noise?
Yeah, predominantly it's that driver that says that you're always considering food in conversation in mental conversations that you're having internalizing. So like people wake up in the morning, it's like, okay, what am I gonna have for breakfast? What am I gonna do for lunch? What am I gonna do for dinner? Oh, going out the weekend, where am I gonna eat, etc. So for some people it's quite loud is probably the
Mm.
best way to describe it. For others, it's just a part of our day to day sort of get up. Oh, right, I have a slice of toast for breakfast, or I'm going to have my yogurt and berries or whatever. And then you don't think about food again, other until maybe sort of that typical lunchtime cycle between 12 and 2 that comes around and goes, oh yeah, now it's time for some more food. Or you might get a mid-afternoon lull, so you think, oh, I'll just go and have a snack of some sort, whether it's healthy snack or whether it's protein bar or whether it's a couple of biscuits and a cup of tea. Depends what everyone's go-to is. People work differently, but some people really struggle with it being a constant aggravator in their head that's just there, and they want to eat, but they have to just dissuade that noise in their minds. So when we talk about it, it can be positive food noise, and it can also be negative food noise. On a GLP-1 journey, the reduction in that food noise can have its pros and cons as well. As you can imagine, for people that really struggle with having constant thoughts about food, constant, thoughts about when they're eating, what they're eating, that dulling of that food noise can be really positive in terms of creating space for other things, more time to spend on focused work, more time to spend with their families, more focusing on things that they want to plan to do, etc., because they don't have that other um, criteria that's taking over. On the other side of that, it can be a negative if people really enjoy food and really enjoy the thought of, going out for dinner or planning meals, etc., that joy is taken away almost with the food noise disappearing. So it can be good and bad for some individuals. Now, obviously, from a GLP-1 point of view, if people are on those to lose weight, losing the food noise can mean that they don't have the capacity to want to eat or we eat as frequently because they don't think about it as often as they were, subconsciously think about it, or also practically applying the thought about it. And also if they're having other side effects such as the nausea or various other things like that, then it it dispels that desire to eat anyway. But then obviously on the other side, if it's a social thing that people have been doing in terms of going out for dinners regularly with friends, if it's something that they do quite often, for enjoyment, is to treat themselves to a particular snack, food source, whatever, losing that food noise can then impact them because they need to find something to substitute potentially that treat with. And it can be positive. Obviously, it might be a case of, I don't know, go to the cinema instead, or go and do something that they enjoy. But it can play with some people's minds in a sense that they've lost an enjoyment factor that they had previously.
Mm. Uh, It is amazing, isn't it? How, when people, I'm sure a lot of people start off on GLP-1s and they just think, right, I'm just going to lose weight.
Mm,
And then obviously it's far more of an emotional and mental
yes.
health impact on it. And all of those things must play with your mind, whether the guilt of eating or not eating
Yes,
as well.
yes, absolutely. And when we think about the psychological impact, it's important a lot of the time to think about the people around us as well. So some people are very vocal and happy to talk about their GLP-1 journeys, and have shared shared information with friends and family, etc. Some people have been reluctant to do so, and therefore they're dealing with this on their own, which can cause a sense of isolation, if you like, and loneliness, which we'll probably come on to and talk about in another session. But the core thing is just being very conscious and aware of people's perception around food. And if you notice people have changed suddenly, it's probably not wise to go and ask the question of, oh, are you on GLP-1s because you don't seem to eat as much, or you don't want to eat as much as you used to. It's more about, are you okay? Is there anything you want to talk about? And give them the opportunity to have that chat with you. And then it's finding ways of substituting what they might have previously found enjoyable with other things that they can equally find joy in. So for me personally, exercise is a massive thing. So I really enjoy going for a walk, and that's my way of, quietening my brain if there's something busy going on that I need to sort out. I'm not and haven't been on a GLP-1 journey, so I can't speak from experience in that space. But I know that that's my go-to if I'm feeling a bit low, that I'll go and do that to find to build the endorphins and get the dopamine effect back again. For other people, if it is food or whatever, it might be substituting with something completely different, or it might be needing to spend more time with people to take them away from being in their own head and having that space that was previously consumed by the food noise, which might have been positive for them. It's very much working with the individual to identify, what they need and how we need to support them as, professionals, personal trainers, online coach, whatever, to ensure that they are happy in themselves, even though they're on this GLP-1 journey.
And I think one of the things that Sally said in her thing is the one concern about when she comes off it, her biggest concern was the food noise, and does it come back, which I believe it does.
It does, because it's effectively dulling receptors. So the GLP-1 drug is there, and it does dull certain receptors in the brain. So obviously it triggers certain response mechanisms in the body to say you're not really hungry or you don't need food, and therefore it triggers the dulling of that food noise. So therefore, if you're not also eating, that can be a concern, because obviously, nutrition, we require nutrients for our food, vitamins, minerals, all sorts of things like that. And if we don't get the right nutrition value, then potentially we are damaging ourselves longer term. The other thing with the GLP-1 journey is it's not something that you can instantly start taking and instantly stop taking. It's something that needs a progressive, cycle of reduction to come off of those, if the prescription from your GP or from your medical professional is to do that. We know that obviously people are self-prescribing these and are buying them directly. The key thing is making sure that you get advice if you are struggling with the symptoms that you're having on the GLP-1s, or if you do decide you want to stop taking them, is to get some advice as to how to do that most effectively, so that you don't then suffer potential side effects or consequences that that are unnecessary if you go through the process properly. We do know that when people come off of GLP-1s, there is a potential tendency for people to put more weight back on again. And because, as we were talking previously, the muscle loss that we can see in GLP-1s and the weight loss that comes from taking them, that's why it's prescribed to do more strength training to ensure that we maintain the muscle mass even though we're losing weight. If we come off of them, the fat going back on again isn't necessarily muscle going back on. So therefore, we're potentially at risk of putting more fat tissue back in our bodies as opposed to putting muscular tissue back in. So we just need to think about the right way of dealing with this. And so that's why, as personal trainers, online coaches, we're there to support in the right way alongside the medical professionals to work with the clients to do what they need to do to achieve the outcomes that they're aiming for. Ultimately, long term, it's all about health and well-being. So we want people to be well, and we want people to feel fit and healthy. So we need to support that as a collective group of professionals for that individual.
Yeah, and I think really the sum up of this food noise session is to understand the pros and the cons of it, and specifically understanding if you are coming off GLPs, what do you replace it with? And I'm very impressed with your plug on 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 the weight training side, or healthy side of it, which is really, really important, and all the additional benefits that you get from it.
Yeah.
So,
And and it's got to be per the individual. So tapering, sorry, making sure that we provide exercise provision for people that they enjoy is key. It might not be weight training in a certain way that somebody else does it, but ultimately what we want to do is ensure that everybody's got a good quality of health, which means their flexibility, their mobility, and their strength, alongside nutrition that supports them and supports the well-being going forwards.
Yeah, absolutely. So, well, thank you. And I'm going to be professional this time to say what we're going to do on our next episode, which is having said that, do I have it to hand? I do. And we are going to be looking at the GLP-1 body reaction. So how our body reacts and what happens when we start taking it, what happens after a while, and how things change. And obviously it's not prescriptive because everybody has their own journey and reacts differently, but we will be covering it next time. So
Absolutely.
thank you very much, Becky. Thank you.
Thanks, Catriona.